Singling out one, he slid into the lock and turned it. Emily's heart pounded uncomfortably in her chest. Rutherford opened the door and then stepped back so that Aunt Norwood and Emily could enter. The small room was surprisingly spartan. A large table and 2 chairs took up the bulk of the space. The only objects on the table were an inkwell, quilt, and a small pile of clean paper. 3 large easels stood holding canvases, and a pile of empty frames lay on the floor beside them. A box containing paint and brushes sat on the end of the shelf, and the remainder of the space was taken by books. It was obvious that the usual occupant of the room enjoyed painting, but that appeared to be the only clue to his identity. The personal touches common in most gentlemen's studies were missing. There was no hat or scarf, no handwritten notes, no plants on the shelf, and no art on the wall. It appeared that Mr. Fernsby hung paintings everywhere in the museum, except within his own office. Aunt Norwood circled the table before returning to join Emily and Rutherford at the door. Nothing could be said. There was no sign of Henry or any hint of a physical struggle. What is the next locked door, Rutherford? She asked. That would be the art door, Norwood. Very well, it will go there now. Rutherford waited and Mr. Fernsby waited before closing the door and locking it behind him. He then moved to the next door and unlocked it. Once again, he decided to allow the ladies to enter. This room was long and narrow. The walls were covered in deep shelves that held stacks of framed art. Emily walked the length of the room, glancing at the artwork as she searched for anything that might be out of place. It did not take long. Next, Aunt Norwood said. Rutherford locked the door behind him and continued across the landing, leading them past 4 display rooms before stopping at another door. Emily stared at it, tears pricking the back of her eyes. She'd been here before on a hat day. This was the room that had housed the butterfly collection when it had first arrived, and it was where Henry had first kissed her. The light brush of his lips against her cheek hadn't been anything like the earth-shattering kiss they shared in the garden so recently, but the tenderness behind it had opened Emily's eyes to what her heart had already known. This is the obsession room, Rutherford said, inserting the key in the lock. Emily took an unsteady breath and blinked away the moisture in her eyes. Aunt Norwood reached for her hand and squeezed it. You shall find him, Emily. I am sure of it. The room was almost unrecognizable. Large crates filled what had previously been an open area. Wisps of straw clung to the crates' wooden slats and lay littered across the floor. Most of the crates' lids leaned haphazardly against the open boxes. 2 of them, the largest and the smallest, lay on top of their respective crates. The tables that had once housed the butterfly collection and piles of literature were now covered in wooden statues, primitive masks, capes, headdresses, earthenware bowls, and spears. Emily navigated the narrow path between the boxes to the table. She spotted the row of carved idols immediately, 5 of them, each bearing a different jewel. Picking up the one containing the ruby, she held it out so that Aunt Norwood could see it. Henry was here, she said. Aunt Norwood eyed the piece grimly. So the all-important question is, where did he go afterward? The sound of voices roused Henry from his stupor. Emily. He'd been thinking of her when he'd lost consciousness again, and now he was hearing her. He forced his eyes open. In his cramped quarters, his eyes were almost the only things he could move without incurring more pain. The narrow beams of light filtering in through the chinks had moved only a little since the last time he'd checked. Perhaps he hadn't been insensible so long this time. Check that side of the room, Emily. Rutherford and I will look through here. Henry's breath caught. Aunt Norwood. Surely the words had been too clear to be caused by delirium. Footsteps sounded, coming nearer. Hope, fortified by desperation, gave his aching limbs strength. He tried calling out, but managed nothing more than a soft moan. He swung his knees to the left. They hit the side crate. Ignoring the pain, he drew them back and swung again. The thud was muffled by the fabric of his breeches, but he did it a 3rd time. Could you hear that? It was Emily's voice. Emily! Henry's attempt at calling her name had had the same pathetic result as crying out had done. His dry tongue could barely formulate the word, and all sound was stolen by the fabric in his mouth. It sounds like the visitors in Mr. Townsend's tour have arrived on this floor. That was Rutherford, and he sounded anxious. No, Emily said. It wasn't that. Light footsteps drew closer. Henry thumped the side of the crate with his knees again and again. It's coming from over here, Emily cried. From the big crate. More hurried footsteps, this time solid and firm. Stand back, Miss Wilson. Let me see to the lid. Above his head, the wood creaked, and there was an ear-splitting crack. One of the strips of wood flew clear, letting in a stream of light. Henry blinked, instinctively turning away from the bright sunlight, only to moan in pain as the tender spot on the back of his head rubbed against the side of the crate. Mr. Buckland! Rutherford's shock was mingled with horror, and it appeared to give the porter additional strength. The remainder of the lid flew off in one giant piece and clattered to the ground. Don't you worry, sir. He'll have you out of there in no time. Dear heaven, what did that terrible man do to you, Henry? Aunt Norwood said. Henry attempted to focus on the faces swimming above him. Peacock feathers swayed in and out of his vision. He turned his head slightly, ignoring the pain in his desperate search for Emily. And then he saw her. Her dark eyes were filled with tears. She leaned over the edge of the box and reached for his face. He closed his eyes, drawing strength from her soft touch. Rutherford, see if you can remove the cravat from his mouth without injuring him further, Aunt Norwood said. Emily disappeared, replaced by Rutherford, who started tugging at the cloth. Henry groaned. Gently, Aunt Norwood warned. The force of Rutherford's tugging lessened slightly, but he did not give up. It's almost there, sir. One more pull, and Henry felt the fabric loosen. He held perfectly still as Rutherford drew it out of his mouth and away from his face. Carefully, Henry moved his jaw up and down. It did not appear to be broken. Here, Emily said, handing Rutherford a lethal-looking knife. This dagger was on the table. See if you can use it to cut its bindings. Spare my legs and arms, if you would. Henry croaked. The words were almost incomprehensible. Water, Aunt Norwood said. Where can we find water? Henry has some in his office, Emily said. I noticed the bowl and pitcher earlier. Henry attempted to knock, but quickly changed his mind. Emily didn't need the painful confirmation. She was observant enough to know exactly where to find it. Would you like me to fetch the water, my lady? Rutherford asked. I'll go, Emily said before Aunt Norwood replied. Rutherford is needed here to help Henry out of the crate. Thank you, my dear. I think you will manage it faster than I would. Emily didn't reply. She'd already left. Chapter 26. Throwing all decorum to the wind, Emily ran the entire distance between the accessions wing and Henry's office. Vaguely aware that Mr. Townsend's tour was in the Montague room, she gave no thought to the head that turned to watch as she whizzed by. Her sole focus was on getting the water Henry so desperately needed. Bursting through the door to his office, she came to a stumbling halt beside the workbench. The pitcher standing on the corner was almost completely full. Henry would not need that much water right away, and it would be far easier for her to carry it quickly if the pitcher were not so heavy. Pouring half the water into the bowl that Henry likely used to wash his hands after working with plants and animals, she carried the pitcher out of the office. She made the return trip to the accession room at a hasty shuffle rather than a full sprint. Keeping her eyes on the sloshing water, she attempted to keep the pitcher level as she hurried across the marble floor. The door to the accessions room remained open, and she slipped in. That's it, sir. Slow and steady. Emily stopped, her ragged breathing catching at the sight before her. Rutherford stood behind Henry, his arms around Henry's chest, supporting him and helped pull him to his feet in the crate. Henry swayed, and Rutherford shifted one leg, anchoring himself more firmly. Take your time, sir. I'll help you out as soon as you're ready, Rutherford said. Now, Henry croaked. Slowly, he raised one leg, gingerly lifting it over the side of the crate and lowering it to the floor. He paused, his chest heaving as he stood straddling the edge. Rutherford continued to hold him. Again, Henry panted. This time, he placed his weight on the foot outside the crate and lifted his other leg over. He stumbled. Rutherford staggered back a pace, and on Norwood gasped. Henry reached for the side of the crate, grasping it with one hand as Rutherford steadied himself. All right, sir? Rutherford asked. Henry lowered head nodded slightly, but his arm was trembling, and Mason's cuffs were stained with blood. Chair, Henry rasped. Maintaining his hold on Henry with one arm, Rutherford leaned for the chair beside him and dragged him into position beside Henry. The chair is all right, sir, Rutherford said. On the count of 3, I'll help you onto it. Henry grunted his agreement, and Rutherford began to count. When he reached 3, Henry lowered himself onto the seat, and Rutherford released him. Nicely done, sir, Rutherford said. Let him have some water before he attempts anything more, Aunt Norwood said. Emily is here. Emily glanced at the pitcher in her hands, suddenly wondering what to do with it. Can he manage without a cup? Absolutely, Aunt Norwood said. As long as some of it gets down his throat, it doesn't matter if his shirt and vest become wet in the process. Henry raised his head, eyes softening at Emily's approach. I'm sorry, Henry, she whispered brokenly. I hate to see you so badly hurt. He reached out and touched her face and hair. You are calm, he laughed. That's all that matters. And that you are safe, she said, raising the jug. You must drink. I will do my best not to spill. Without waiting for a response, Emily pressed the pitcher to his lips. Cautiously, she tipped it, watching for the first sign of water. A dribble ran down his chin.